So JBL just put out two bangers of party boxes. First, there's the JBL Partybox 520, which I feel is the perfect size. It gives you more than enough power where you never ask for more, but you never get overwhelmed and feel like you made a huge mistake. But then there's the JBL Partybox 720, which basically says, oh, you think the 520 is crazy? Then check this out. Now, the 720 can be a little overwhelming, but it's still as versatile as the Partybox 520. But today, we're going to compare the JBL Partybox 720 to something a little bigger, the Sony ULT Tower 10, which might give you a little bit more bang for your buck. Regarding pricing, these speakers are closer than you'd think. The JBL Partybox 720 retails for $1,100, whereas the Sony ULT Tower 10 retails for $1,200, and the Sony ULT Tower 10 does like to go on sale on a regular basis. However, these speakers are very different from one another. Nonetheless, if you want to pick either of these two speakers up, they'll be linked down below, or you can always press on the YouTube shopping button. And if you want to further support the channel, then you can always watch some of the related videos in the description down below. So first, we have to talk about the design and portability of these speakers, and most importantly, that's the built-in batteries. The Sony ULT Tower 10 does not have a built-in battery. You can only use this speaker while it's plugged in, obviously affecting the portability of the speaker. Whereas with the JBL Partybox 720, this speaker does have a built-in battery. Now, the 720 has an advertised battery life of 15 hours, which is very impressive. However, that's with this speaker playing at 40% volume, which is already a really good listening volume to begin with. But that's with the light feature turned off and with the bass boost feature turned off as well. And in general, battery life on this speaker really varies depending on how you use it. If you use it at a higher volume, or with the light feature turned on or off, or with the bass boost feature turned on, all of that is going to affect your battery life. But real-world use with the speaker playing at 60% volume and with the light feature turned on and with the bass boost feature turned on, for me, the speaker's been good for around 8 hours of playback time. And honestly, anything above 60% volume while indoors on either of these two speakers, that is going to require hearing protection. But the really cool thing about the Partybox 720 is that just like the Partybox 520, 320, and 120, you can quickly and easily swap out the battery on the speaker. So if you want, you can get multiple batteries and keep the party going, or if you ever get to a point where your speaker can no longer hold a charge, instead of having to buy a completely new speaker, all you need to do is just buy a new battery, which is going to be good for the overall life of your investment. However, the JBL Partybox 720 is actually using dual 600 batteries, so you can actually mix and match batteries between the JBL Partybox 720, 520, and Boombox 4, because all three of these speakers are using the same batteries. And to charge the speaker, it charges via a double barrel AAC port, and when you use the speaker while it's plugged in, you are going to get a noticeable performance boost out of it. It is going to get louder, and it is going to have more bass. Honestly, while it's plugged in, the Partybox 720 gets almost as loud as both the JBL Partybox Ultimate and the Sony ULT Tower 10. So, thanks to the Partybox 720's built-in battery, this speaker is a lot more portable than the Sony ULT Tower 10. Also, the 720 is noticeably smaller than the Tower 10, and it weighs in at 69 pounds. Nice. Plus, it also has built-in wheels, so you can easily roll this speaker around. And thankfully, these wheels are super chunky, so the 720 is still easy to roll around in a parking lot, or on the sidewalk, or on the grass, or even on a thick carpet. Now, the Tower 10 also has built-in wheels, but these wheels are tiny, so they're really only useful on hardwood floors. So overall, the Partybox 720 is a lot more portable and a lot more versatile than the Tower 10. But with both of these speakers, you are going to want some help if you're going to load them into the car or carry them up and down stairs if you don't want to damage the car itself or the walls in your house or the speakers themselves. But when it comes to durability, both of these speakers have a mostly plastic body, which can get scratched very easily, and they both have thin metal grills on the front, which can get dented very easily as well. So you do want to be careful with both of these speakers. However, the JBL Partybox 720 does have an IPX4 water resistance rating, whereas the Sony doesn't, because the Sony just doesn't have a cover for its plug. So in general, I do feel that if you plan on using your speaker by the pool, I would recommend the JBL because of the water resistance distance rating, but also the control panel on the JBL is using physical buttons, so even if your hands are wet, you're going to be fine. Whereas the Sony has a touchpad up top, so it might not work as well if your fingers are a little wet. But then there are the light feature on these speakers. Now, I think the light feature on the Sony looks good, and I really like that it has floor lights, and these floor lights have a large area effect. So it really gives this speaker a very big presence, especially at night. However, I do feel that JBL's light feature is more impressive and dynamic and is a lot more visible by comparison. But also with the JBL, since this speaker is using Auracast, you can connect it to any of JBL's party lights and sync them up and extend your light feature if you want. But like I said in the full review, I do wish that the Partybox 720 had floor lights like the Ultimate. Nonetheless, if you do decide to use this light feature on the 720, that is going to affect your overall battery life. But then there are the ports on these speakers, and this is another area where JBL beats Sony. First off, the JBL is using XLR combo jacks, so if you want, you can easily plug it into a mixer, making it great for someone that might want to moonlight as a DJ. Whereas with the Sony, you can use it with a mixer, but you're either going to have to use an audio jack connection or a Bluetooth connection. It works, but having those XLR inputs is just more solid. But more importantly, with both of these speakers, you can plug in a microphone for karaoke, or you can plug in a guitar. However, with the JBL Partybox 720, you can plug in 2 wired mics, whereas with the Sony ULT Tower 10, you can only plug in 1 wired mic. But the Sony ULT Tower 10 does come included with its own wireless microphone. So you can still get a total of 2 mics working with the ULT Tower 10, just like you can with the JBL. Now, with both of these speakers, you can also go in and you can add an echo if you want for when you're doing karaoke. However, with the JBL Partybox 720, you can also go ahead and adjust the bass of your microphone, or you can also go ahead and adjust the treble of your microphone. And this is something that you just can't do with either of Sony's speakers. But also, with both of these speakers, you can use them with wireless mics if you want. Now, I do think JBL's mics sound better because they do a better job of just focusing on your voice, and they also do a much better job of not picking up any noise pollution when you're actually handling these microphones. But the weird thing with JBL's mics is that their mic has a 20-hour battery life, but the receiver has a 12-hour battery life, whereas with the Sony, both the mics and the receiver have a 20-hour battery life. But regardless, you can use these wireless mics with any speaker out there. But with the Partybox 720, this speaker has a USB-C port, which you can use to charge your own phone, or you can also use this USB-C port to charge your mics or the receiver, and you can also use this USB-C port as a wired connection with your phone. Whereas with the ULT Tower 10, this speaker has a USB-A port, which I don't feel is as convenient, but you can plug in a USB stick and play music off of it if you want. But with both of these speakers, you can still use them with a wired connection because they both still have an audio jack. However, the Partybox 720 also has an audio out jack, so you can always daisy chain the speaker up to any other speaker, regardless of size or brand, and get them to play in sync, and I really feel that this is genuinely a super useful feature. Now, the Sony doesn't have an audio out jack, but what it does have is an optical port, so if you want, you can connect the speaker up to your TV and use it as a soundbar, which I also feel is a super useful feature. So here you are going to have to choose between having that audio out jack on the JBL or the optical ports on the Sony, so this is definitely going to come down to your own personal preference. And when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, both of these speakers can be connected to 2 devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ. Latency is not an issue for either of these 2 speakers, so you can use them to watch videos with on your phone. But when it comes to audio codecs, the JBL only has support for SPC and AAC, which is fine, whereas the Sony has support for SPC, AAC, and LDAC, which is Sony's own in-house high-res audio codec. But if you do want to use LDAC, you do have to be an Android user because iPhones top out at AAC, but regardless, the Sony still sounds great even with AAC. And just keep in mind that neither of these 2 speakers have Wi-Fi, like let's say the JBL Partybox Ultimate, but personally I really don't care for Wi-Fi on any of my party boxes or even Sony ULT Towers. But wait, if you're actually going to charge all of this stuff, then check out our partners over at Anker. They've got a ton of battery banks and chargers, and personally I've been using this new 7-in-1 charging station from Anker. Now personally I really like this charging base because it has 2 built-in USB-C cables which retract, and you can use them to either charge small devices like your earbuds, or you can even use them to charge your larger devices like your iPad or MacBook. There's an additional USB-C port, so you can plug in an additional cable, and there's also a USB-A port if you've got any older devices that are using a USB-A cable. Plus on the back, you've got an additional three-prong AC ports, so you can plug in any of your other devices, and this base also has a built-in screen, so you can see how much power it's putting out. You can also see how much power each device is taking, and you can even get temp readouts just to be safe. Honestly, this charging base does save me a lot of clutter here in the studio because I have a lot of devices that just constantly need to be charged. So if you want to pick this charging base up, it'll be linked down below, or you can always press on the YouTube shopping button. And I'm also going to keep a coupon code in the pinned comment down below so that I can get you an extra discount. With all that out of the way, let's talk about sound. Regarding speaker setup, these two speakers are very different from one another. The JBL Partybox 720 has dual front-firing woofers with an exhaust port that shoots out the back and dual front-firing tweeters. A pretty basic speaker setup, whereas the Sony ULT Tower 10 has a single front-firing woofer with a front-firing exhaust port, dual front-firing mid-range drivers, and a total of 4 tweeters, 2 that shoot out the front and 2 that shoot out the back. And like I have said multiple times already, I really wish the 720 had these mid-range drivers, because the Partybox Ultimate also has mid-range drivers, which genuinely does help their speakers sound better than the 720 because it sounds more open and it has better definition in the mids. So I do think the 720 not having mid-range drivers is a shame given its size and price. Now, the Tower 10 also has its ULT feature. ULT 1 is going to increase your bass, and this is the setting that I like to use while indoors, and ULT 2 is going to increase both your bass and the sound pressure of the speaker, so the mids and highs are going to be more prominent, and ULT 2 is going to be better used for outdoor use. Whereas the JBL has its bass boost, deep and punchy, and personally I do prefer deep because it gives you more kick in your bass, whereas punchy gives you more of a resonance, so it can mess with your music a little bit. But now we're going to go ahead and jump into the sound test. Both of these speakers are playing at 75% volume, but we're going to be using the JBL Partybox 720 while it's unplugged and plugged in.
We both know it right away. When I see you dancing, I know you're a 10. It's
So when it comes to sound quality, these two speakers do sound fairly different from one another. First off, there's the bass. Now, both of these speakers have a lot of bass, but they are different. The bass on the JBL is a lot more violent and physical than the bass that you'll find on the Tower 10. The bass on the JBL will rattle the walls in your house a lot more than the bass found on the Sony. However, the bass on the Tower 10 is much smoother and cleaner than the bass found on the 720. Now, the Tower 10 has a lot of physicality in its bass, but it does like to lean more towards the audible side. But more importantly, we do have to talk about the instrument separation on these speakers. Plainly said, the JBL Partybox 720 sounds a lot more nasally than the Tower 10 because it puts more of an emphasis on the highs and the mids aren't as defined. Whereas with the Sony, the speaker sounds more open than the 720 thanks to those additional mid-range drivers and quad tweeters. So the Tower 10 doesn't put as much of an emphasis on the highs because it doesn't have to, and instead the mids have better detail thanks to those dedicated mid-range drivers. So as a result, the Sony ULT Tower 10 sounds more balanced and more open than the 720, whereas with the 720 sounds more violent. Nonetheless, both of these speakers sound good, but the Sony ULT Tower 10 does give you better quality sound. But then there's the max volume performance on these speakers. Now, both of these speakers are going to have no problem with a 50% party, and we're starting to enter commercial use territory. Think a medium-sized restaurant, a small DJ gig, or some type of event booth. And the very impressive thing here is even when the 720 is running off of its internal battery, this speaker gets impressively loud, because usually when a speaker is running off of its internal battery, it does reduce its overall max volume performance. However, when you use this speaker while it's plugged in, you are going to get a performance boost out of it. It is going to get louder and it is going to have more bass. And when the 720 is plugged in, it gets almost as loud as the Sony ULT Tower 10 and even the JBL Partybox Ultimate. Overall, with the JBL Partybox 720, this speaker gets more than loud enough and it has a lot of violent bass. But the Sony ULT Tower 10, you are going to get better quality sound because this speaker sounds more open and it has better definition in the mids, thanks to those dedicated mid-range drivers, which are just sorely missing on the 720. But also, the bass isn't as overwhelming or overpowering as the bass found on the 720. But finally, let's talk about pairing these speakers up with other speakers. Now, with both of these speakers, if you have two of the exact same speakers, then you can wisely pair them up and get them to play in left and right stereo mode, but they have to be two of the exact same speakers. Now, the Sony ULT Tower 9 is using Sony's wireless party chain, and you can pair it up to Sony's other speakers that are also using wireless party chain, like let's say a Tower 10, a Tower 9, XV800, XV500, or to the XP700 or XP500, or you can also pair it up to any of Sony's smaller speakers that are also using wireless party chain, like either the Sony ULT Field 7, ULT Field 5, or ULT Field 3, or you can also pair it up to the Sony XG500, XG300, XE300, XE200, or to the XP43, XP33, or XP23. The only thing is, you cannot connect your Sony ULT Tower 9 up to the Sony ULT Field 1 because it does not have a wireless party chain, and I do feel that that is a shame. Whereas with the JBL Partybox 720, it's using Auracast, so you can pair it up to other Auracast speakers, like let's say a JBL Partybox Encore 2, or the Partybox 120, 320, 520, 720, or 2 and Ultimate, and get them to all play in sync. Or you can also pair it up to any of JBL's smaller speakers that are also using Auracast, like a Charge 6, or an Extreme 4, a Flip 7, a Clip 5, or to a Go 4, or you can also pair it up to the new JBL Grip or the JBL Boombox 4. And you can also connect your 720 up to any of JBL's older party boxes that are using TWS, like let's say the original Encore or Partybox 110, 310, or 710. The only thing is you can only have a total of 2 speakers wirelessly paired to one another. But also keep in mind that you cannot connect your JBL Partybox 720 up to any of JBL's older speakers that are using Party Boost, like either a JBL Boombox 3, a Boombox 2, an Extreme 3, a Charge 5, a Pulse 5, a Pulse 4, a Flip 6, or to a Flip 5. But also with Auracast, you'll be able to connect your JBL Partybox 720 up to any non-JBL speakers that are also using Auracast. And like I mentioned earlier, the Partybox 720 also has that audio out jack, so if you want, you can always daisy chain it up to any other speaker, regardless of size or brand, and get them to play in sync. Both of that being said, I think both of these speakers are great, but they do have their key differences. Now, the JBL Partybox 720, this speaker is more portable and more versatile because first off, the speaker does have a built-in battery, so you can use it anywhere. But also, this speaker is more portable because it's noticeably smaller, but it also has much larger wheels, so it's much easier for a single person to move and roll this speaker around. Also, I think this speaker is more versatile thanks to its port setup, and it also has a better looking light feature. And when it comes to sound, the JBL Partybox 720 gets almost as loud as the Sony ULT Tower 10 while it's plugged in, which is genuinely very impressive. But with the Sony ULT Tower 10, it does sound better than the JBL Partybox 720 because it sounds more open, more balanced, and it has better definition in the mid and highs thanks to the additional mid-range drivers and quad tweeters, which are just missing on the 720. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.